Most damage arrives smiling. The voice is soft. The pressure's quiet. The confusion comes later. That is why toxic people are missed for so long. They rarely attack your body first. They go after your clarity. They borrow your trust. Then they use it against you. You have felt this before. You just may not have named it. Today, you will. By the end, you will spot 6 manipulation tactics faster. Trust your signals sooner and protect your peace without drama. Start with the feeling, because your body often notices the tactic before your mind explains it. A tight chest, second guessing, and the urge to over-explain are often the first alarms. Watch for that pattern when someone leaves you confused after a simple conversation. Healthy conflict can feel uncomfortable, but it does not usually make reality feel slippery. Toxic manipulation often begins by making you doubt what you already saw clearly. The first tactic is gaslighting, and its real goal is not disagreement. Its goal is control over your confidence and your own memory. The toxic person denies what happened, edits the sequence, or acts shocked that you even noticed it. They may say you are too sensitive, too dramatic, or imagining things. Here is what is really happening. They are trying to move the argument away from their behavior and into your perception. If they can make you defend your sanity, they no longer have to defend their actions. That is why gaslighting feels exhausting instead of direct. You are pulled into proving obvious things that should never require proof. An everyday example looks almost harmless at first. They make a cutting remark in front of others, then later insist it was a joke. When you say it hurt, they act puzzled and ask why you always twist things. Now the conversation is no longer about the insult. It is about whether you are somehow broken for noticing it. That shift is the trap. The defense is simple, but not always easy. Anchor yourself to specifics instead of their tone. What was said? When it was said? Who heard it? What changed afterward? If needed, write it down soon after it happens. Not to obsess, but to keep your reality from being rewritten in real time. A grounded sentence helps here. That is not how I remember it, and I'm not debating my experience. Notice what happens next. If they want resolution, they move toward clarity. If they want control, they push harder when you become precise. And the most convincing gaslighters are not always loud. Some hide behind concern, patience, and a perfectly measured voice. That is what makes the second tactic so effective. It is guilt as a leash. Toxic people often turn your empathy into a handle they can pull whenever you set a boundary. The message is rarely stated directly. It is implied. If you loved me, you would not need limits. If you were kind, you would ignore your own needs. If you were loyal, you would keep tolerating what is draining you. This works because decent people do not want to be cruel. You care. You think twice. You want to be fair. A manipulator counts on that pause and fills it with shame. Here is the sharper reframe. Guilt is useful when you have violated your values. It is dangerous when someone manufactures it to keep access to you. A common example happens the moment you say no. They do not respect the boundary. They perform pain around it. Suddenly you are not discussing your limit. You are managing their disappointment, their silence, or their wounded speech. Watch for lines that make your boundary sound like betrayal. After everything I have done for you, I guess I just matter less to you now. You have changed. Those phrases are designed to make you reopen a closed door. So here is how you take your power back. Separate compassion from compliance. You can care about someone's feelings without surrendering your decision. Try this response. I hear that you are upset, and my answer is still no. Short, calm. No argument to grab. If they escalate the guilt after a clear boundary, that escalation is information. It tells you they were relying on emotional pressure more than mutual respect. There is one tell many people miss. Manipulators often become most emotional the moment you become most clear. That is not always pain. Sometimes it is panic over losing leverage. The third tactic is love bombing, and it fools people because it feels positive at first. Too much attention can look like care when you have been starved of steady affection. The toxic person moves fast. Fast praise, fast intimacy, fast promises, fast certainty. They make you feel unusually chosen before they have truly learned who you are. It can feel magical. It can also feel strangely rushed. That tension matters. Real connection deepens. Manipulation accelerates. The point of love bombing is not closeness, it is dependency. If they flood you early, they can make normal pacing feel cold later. Then, when they pull back, you chase the version of them that never had time to be real. This happens in dating, friendships, workplaces, and even family systems. A new boss may praise you heavily, promise unusual opportunities, then later use that glow to demand silence. A partner may talk about forever in days, then punish you when you ask for time. Watch for intensity that outruns evidence. Watch for private promises that create pressure before trust has been earned. Watch for how they react when you slow the pace. A healthy person can handle rhythm. A manipulator often treats your caution like rejection. Your defense is not cynicism, it is timing. Let actions repeat before you let promises root deeply. Ask yourself whether the bond is growing through consistency or through emotional speed. If you've caught yourself ignoring that rushed feeling before, you are not alone. Tell me below. That feeling is often wisdom arriving before language does. Now we get to a quieter tactic that can damage your confidence for years. Triangulation. This is when a toxic person pulls a third person into the emotional field to create insecurity, jealousy, or competition. They compare you to an ex, a sibling, a coworker, or some mysterious person who supposedly understands them better. The goal is not honesty. The goal is destabilization. If they can make you compete, you stop evaluating them. Instead of asking whether they are trustworthy, you start asking whether you are enough. That is the switch. A manipulator wants your attention pointed inward at your worth, not outward at their behavior. Here is an everyday version. You raise a fair concern. Instead of answering it, they mention how someone else never had this problem. Now you are defending yourself against a ghost. You are no longer discussing the issue at hand. Triangulation also keeps the toxic person at the center of multiple emotional currents. They become the source of approval everyone starts chasing. That makes people easier to divide and manage. Watch for vague references to others that appear whenever you need clarity. Watch for praise given to one person only when another person needs to feel small. Watch for stories that always leave you insecure and them elevated. The defense is direct language. Bring the conversation back to the actual relationship in front of you. A solid response sounds like this: if there is an issue between us, talk to me about us. Do not compete with invisible people. Do not audition for fairness. People who want healthy connection do not need to weaponize comparison. And here is the defensive insight most people learn late. Any bond that constantly makes you feel replaceable is training you to accept less than respect. The fifth tactic is intermittent reinforcement, and it is one of the hardest to leave because it does not feel bad all the time. It feels amazing just often enough to keep hope alive. This is the hot and cold cycle: warmth, distance, attention, silence, reward, withdrawal. Your nervous system starts chasing relief instead of reading the pattern. That is why smart people stay longer than they expected. They are not weak. They are reacting to a powerful conditioning loop. The toxic person gives you just enough reassurance to reset your doubt, then removes it again. You begin to work harder for what should have been freely stable. A message back becomes a prize. Basic kindness feels earned. Consistency starts to look almost unreal. Here is what makes this tactic dangerous. Your mind remembers the good moments and uses them to explain away the bad ones. You tell yourself they do care. They were sweet yesterday. They opened up last week. Maybe this time is different. That hope is human, but pattern matters more than peaks. A concrete example looks like this. After treating you coldly for days, they return with affection right when you are ready to detach. Not enough to repair trust, just enough to restart the waiting. So watch for relationships where effort buys you temporary warmth but never lasting safety. Watch for your standards shrinking while your tolerance grows. And watch for the strange relief you feel when they finally act normal. Normal should not feel like a jackpot. Your defense begins with naming the cycle instead of romanticizing the exceptions. Ask, if the good moments disappeared, would the actual pattern still be acceptable? If the answer is no, do not let rare sweetness make chronic instability look meaningful. You are becoming harder to fool the moment you stop grading people on their best day. Grade them on what repeats. The sixth tactic is blame shifting, the final escape hatch of people who refuse accountability. When cornered by facts, they do not repair. They redirect. They bring up your tone, your timing, your past mistake, something unrelated, anything that moves the spotlight off their choice. Blame shifting keeps you busy cleaning up side issues while the main issue survives untouched. You leave the conversation tired, scattered, and strangely apologetic. Meanwhile, the original harm never gets addressed. This is why toxic arguments feel circular. You think one more explanation will finally land, but they are not missing the point. They are escaping it. A common example happens when you confront a lie. Instead of addressing the lie, they accuse you of invading their privacy by checking the facts. Now you are discussing your method instead of their dishonesty. That pivot is deliberate, whether or not they admit it. Watch for apologies that arrive with a counterattack attached. Watch for accountability that lasts only until your pain becomes inconvenient. Watch for how fast they mention your flaws the second their own are named. The defense is disciplined focus. Return to one issue, one behavior, one outcome. Use short language. We can discuss that later, but right now I am talking about this. Do not chase every branch they throw in your path. That is how you get lost. And here's the contrast that changes everything. The manipulated version of you keeps proving, pleading, and over-explaining. The aware version observes patterns, speaks plainly, and stops donating energy to confusion. One version tries to win fairness from unfair tactics. The other notices the tactics and steps out of the game. That is not cold. That is self-respect, because the real damage of manipulation is not only what they get from you, it is what you start doubting inside yourself. Your instincts, your memory, your pace, your limits, your right to say no without feeling guilty for days. So build a new standard. Pay attention to what happens after you ask a clear question. Pay attention to what happens after you set a calm boundary. Pay attention to whether clarity creates peace or punishment. Healthy people may disagree with you, but they do not need confusion to stay connected. Toxic people often do. That is why awareness matters more than perfect words. You do not need the perfect comeback for every tactic. You need pattern recognition and the courage to trust what the pattern is teaching you. If someone repeatedly leaves you smaller, foggier, and more responsible for their choices, that is not connection. It is erosion. And erosion is still damage, even when it happens quietly. So protect your attention. Protect your timeline. Protect your nervous system from people who only feel powerful when you feel uncertain. The strongest move is often the calmest one. Notice, name, refuse, repeat. If this gave language to something you have been living, subscribe and stay close. There is more here on reading hidden behavior without losing your own center. And if you want the next layer, watch the next video on the signals toxic people show before the mask slips. Until then, stay sharp, stay calm, and do not hand your reality to anyone who needs you confused to keep their power.